that for tonight that we were talking about?
Yeah, no, I watched it.
Can we
They
call
never
this
said we were
public hearing
talking
to
about it.
order, please? Thank you all for coming this evening. This is on our agenda. The press and public are notified. This is a public hearing on ordinance 2017-4, an ordinance to raise revenue and adopt a budget of the City of Isle of Palms for the fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2017 and ending June 30th, 2018. So with no further ado, I'm going to ask Linda, our city administrator, to walk us through the high points on this.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. And I have told a few of you that at the end of the public hearing, there will be a test, so pay close attention. First of all, I want to thank City Council for their hard work on this document. Getting to this point where we are close and we've had first reading takes a lot of work. This year, for the public's benefit, was a new budget process, different from what we've ever done before. And I think everyone felt really good and comfortable with the new process. Hopefully, we will do it similarly next year. Also, the department managers, I want to thank them. They brought forward the needs of their departments, and in some cases were able to tell us when needs that we were anticipating did not need to be filled, which helps to balance the budget. Desiree Fragoso, who is the assistant administrator, helped a lot with this. Marie, who has to do all of the minutes of every meeting that we get together. And then most importantly, Treasurer Suggs, who has to go through all the different versions of the budget, listen to all of our input, and turn this thing out balanced time and time again. So a lot of work to get to this point. What I want to do first is basically do something that I've not done in the past, but I think it might be important, and that is to kind of acquaint you with the structure of the budget document, because it's not just revenues and expenditures. Our budget document really represents a full year's worth of work. So all through the budget year, as we're administering the budget that we're in, we're making notes. Next year's budget, we should think about doing this. You know, council has set a vision for doing this. We need to remember to put that in the budget. Or something comes up that is unbudgeted, and we remember then to put it in the budget for the subsequent year by all year long kind of keeping this file. So this really represents a full year's worth of work. So the opening section of the budget, sort of the first 4 or 5 pages, I think it's like pages 3 through 6 or 2 through 6, that represents the fund balance schedules and on all of our funds. So what this does is it takes where we anticipate that we're going to end the budget year in this year, and it applies to that those things that we think we will gain in revenues for the upcoming year, and then those expenses that we may have and or reserves that we may be doing for the upcoming year. And so then gets us to how we think we're going to end the year. Oh, excuse me, I have a thing.
We've all been there.
Yeah. Anyway, so those first few pages are the fund balance schedules. Then at the very end of the document is the city's 10-year capital plan. And the 10-year capital plan is a plan that changes every single year. We evaluate what's in the plan. We determine what maybe can be deferred another year. We determine what needs to be taken off because we're no longer using it, or what might need to be added because we have bought something new that's going to need to be replaced. So basically that 10-year plan represents the starting point for the subsequent year's budget. In between those, I don't know if I can keep it in my mouth.
I will take one.
In between those, thank you. In between those, we have the general fund revenues, the general fund expenses, the tourism revenues and the tourism expenses, the marina revenues and the marina expenses. Then there are a few smaller funds in there, and then the disaster recovery fund, which we like to keep that mostly revenues and no expenses, but it is definitely there for the city. So then, like I say, we wrap it up with the 10-year plan. There's also a very nice schedule in there that identifies which fund is going to fund which expense. So for all of our major expenses, we lay out all the funds of the city. It's the next to the last thing of the budget, and we determine what fund is going to pay for that expense. So if it's something that we have because of tourism, it might be one of the tourism funds. If it's an expense that we have only because I've done this too much today. If this is an expense that we only have because we're a city of 4,000 people, then it's going to get funded out of the general fund or the capital projects fund. So there's a schedule in there that lays all of that out. So we'll talk about general fund revenues. Now, these are the basic revenues that come into the city: property taxes, business license revenue, meter revenue, things of that nature. Then there are the tourism revenues. These are the revenues that come to us as a result of people visiting. Hospitality revenues, state aid tax revenues, municipal aid tax revenues, and our beach preservation fund. So all of those we call tourism funds. Really results totally of people visiting and some of us going out to eat. Then we have the Marina fund revenues, which essentially is rents paid to the city from our tenants at the Marina. Okay, so now we're going to get to some of the detail in the budget document. And I'm just going to touch on sort of the major things that we're doing, although it is a full page this year, in the budget. First of all, on the general fund is going from $6.3 million to $10.9 million. And there's several things that drive that. The major things are a 4.7% increase, a combined COLA and merit increase. I got one. I don't think I can talk and chew it, though. A combined COLA and merit increase. So it's a 2.7% COLA and a 2% merit pool for those employees whose performance is exceptional throughout the year. And then a brand new thing for the city this year is a $18,000 subscription expense. And what this will do is it will allow any resident who has the need to be transported by helicopter off the island for medical emergency, once their insurance has paid whatever the insurance will pay, they will not be balance billed. So this is a new expense for the city, but an important public safety service for citizens. Then we have increased our employee training by $50,000. The city has a professional development program, and that program allows qualified employees to pursue a post-secondary field of study that is within their work program. Then if they pay for it themselves, if they're successful, then they can apply for reimbursement, and they get reimbursed based on their score. So we've seen an uptick in participation in that program, which is good. Better employees mean better services to citizens, and so we've increased that accordingly. We've added $80,000 to outsource some of the IT function. It will not outsource everything, but it's a start. Currently, we do not have an IT person, and we have a person functioning dually in that role, and we can't keep doing that forever. And then we added $50,000 in the general fund expense to pay for a construction consultant to aid us in doing some of the repairs that need to be made to the city buildings. So capital and special projects initiatives. This year we really have an ambitious budget, probably more ambitious than we have had in many years. But that is because the city has been saving for several projects for a long time and has finally got to the place where it's time to do those projects. And so they're all coming in at once, plus we have some other things to add to that. So it's a very ambitious budget. I don't know whether or not we're going to be able to accomplish everything that's in it, but we'll certainly try. Some of these things may have to go over into the next fiscal year as well. But just detailing some of those out. Drainage Phase 2, there's $2.2 million in the budget to do Drainage Phase 2, which is drainage infrastructure from 46th Avenue to 52nd Avenue. This is a project that has been on the city's books for many, many years, and finally we are at a place, thanks to a grant secured by Desiree Fagoso, a $500,000 grant. We've realized that we can, the money we save plus the grant, we should be able to do this project. So that's booked for next year. We have a stormwater runoff project going on right now back at the Public Works Department, and that will enable us to come into compliance with stormwater runoff requirements at the Public Works. We think that that project is, we know that that project is going to spill over into the next fiscal year, so we have budgeted in next fiscal year the remaining balance of $200,000 to do that project. And it may end up being a little bit more depending on how much progress they make between now and the close of the fiscal year. Then the underground storage tanks. We have 6 underground fuel storage tanks combined at the Marina and at Public Works. We have known and have been saving for a while to replace those tanks, and so we have $800,000 in this budget to replace all the underground storage tanks. And we currently have an RFP out for a consultant to assist us with that project. Then we have about close to $1 million in building maintenance work that we need to do on all city buildings. The largest piece of that is $500,000 to replace the roof at the Public Safety Building, so that's in the budget. We've been saving for, and it's time to replace the public safety radios. And this has been something we've known was coming. It's here now, so we'll be replacing the radios. Mostly that's police and fire radios. And then there's $193,000 to initiate public property improvements to facilitate a visioning session that the City Council had, where the decision was made that we really needed all of our public properties to look better than they have been. And so we have significantly more money budgeted to be able to accomplish that goal in next year. Also, there's $565,000 to replace the walkover that is at the public restrooms, and also to complete the renovations that have been started prior to this beach season but will wrap up after this beach season at the public restrooms. There's $356,000 to rehabilitate the bulkhead at the Marina. And then if the city has a favorable referendum in November, there's roughly $233,000 to do the architectural and design on the upland improvements at the Marina. That's assuming the November referendum passes. There's a rebudget of $2.8 million to go towards a $15 million beach restoration project, and that's for beach restoration in the eastern end of the island. And then a rebudget of more than $100,000 to replace the software throughout the city, the financial software throughout the city. $200,000 for a down payment or a progress payment on replacement of a ladder truck with the city. And then last but not least, $50,000 in the rec building fund to pay for design fees associated with a recreation fitness expansion. Yay, now I'm going to have water.
You earned it.
Take a breath.
That's everything.
Wow. Rather significant projects are going to be undertaken in the course of the year, but many of which have been anticipated, as you said, saved for, and now we're getting on with it, which is important. So, open it up for anybody in the public who wants you to address the matter of our ordinance. Linda did not say that there's no tax increase involved.
There's no tax increase, and we're paying off more debt.
We pay off about $1 million a year in debt, and we have no tax increase, which we haven't had a tax increase really, I don't know, 8 or 9 years now. So we're paying for all this through prudent activities and use of our fees and permits, and then our tourism funds have been very generous to us over the last series of years, so those are working well too. So I'll make that comment and ask anybody who wants to address, come forward. Nobody going once?
Test time.
Going, yeah. You got to give them a little time to get all of that. So. Nothing else, I'll close the public hearing, and we'll move on as soon as Linda takes her seat. And if anybody is stricken by the question as to whether you thought you forgot to close your windows, you're free to go out at any time. All right, let me open up. Are we set? Do you have enough fluids?
I'm good.
All right. Again, let me open up the City Council meeting here at 6 o'clock on the 23rd. And notice that the public and press are properly notified. And I'm going to ask everybody to stand for an invocation and a pledge of allegiance. Let us bow our heads. Dear Lord, let us begin tonight by asking you to remember all those who came before us, our families, our friends, truly our loved ones, and those that have served this country so that we may live in freedom and on this wonderful island. Please guide all those who visit us on this Memorial Day weekend so that they may enjoy our beaches and our waterways and our friendship and return safely to their homes. For it is in your name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Marie, can you please call the roll?
Councilmember Bergward.
Here.
Councilmember Patelli.
Here.
Councilmember Carroll.
Here.
Councilmember Lorenz.
Here.
Councilmember Harrington.
Here.
Councilmember Kinghorn.
Here.
Councilmember Rice.
Here.
Councilmember Moore.
Here.
Mayor Cronin.
Present.
Administrator Tucker.
Here.
And Attorney Howard. Here.
Thank you all for coming. It's not a pleasant night. I guess everybody's got to be somewhere, and outdoors is not the place for tonight, so you might as well find it here. All right, thanks all for coming. Next item is reading of the journal of previous meetings. Regular meeting of April 25th. You have in your, I'll say in your package somewhere, there has been, I've got a note for one change on page 12 to clarify that when the director is mentioned, it should be referred to as Director Pitts is the name in question. So with that one modification, I'll move
have
to
one
approve.
change.
You have a change?
I do.
Okay.
On page 4, this under citizens' comments, it was Mary Stone, not Mary Spann.
Okay, that's a good catch. Any other additions, deletions, corrections? I'm going to move to approve of those amendments. Do I have a second?
Second.
No other additions, corrections? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, carries. Moving on, we have citizens' comments now. I'm going to ask for first citizens' comment to be the consideration of a request for a city-sponsored event. And that's an event for a status of, I don't know, contra-agency to film Visit Charleston, an episode to Visit the USA. This is an effort at the Windjammer from 7 o'clock in the morning till 11 a.m., not the normal time for visiting the
And it
Windjammer.
is on the beach, too.
That will involve the Windjammer in the beach area on Friday the 26th. So is there anyone here to speak to that point? Ah, there you go.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and the rest of the council members. My name is Doug Warner. I'm with the Charleston Convention and Visitors Bureau, and I apologize, first of all, for the short notice on this, but sometimes we get opportunities that we don't know until kind of a short time frame.
By the way, this is better than most we get.
Well, what we are asking is the BBC, the British Broadcast Company, is doing a series that will run from September until December of this year, focusing on music in the USA. And they are featuring our own Darius Rucker. And Darius, because of his start at the Windjammer and the beach and that importance to him, they want to film Friday morning, started at 7, primarily at the Windjammer, but they do want to do some beach filming in the public areas from about 8:30 to 9:30, which would also include a small camera drone so that they could get an aerial of the beach. So it's about an hour, hour and a half impact on the public areas. Then they would be at the Windjammer doing some scenes inside. And then this would be put together and air on all BBC worldwide news channels from September until December.
Wow. I'm certain the administrator has gotten to you what the requirements are relative to insurance. Okay.
Yes, sir.
In any other matters involved? Is there any? Have you have any concerns at this point?
I do not. The only concern I had was, and I voiced it, was that it was the Friday of Memorial Day weekend.
Yes.
And it could be crowded, and, you know, whomever's operating that drone is going to need to be extremely careful. We don't want drones on anybody's head.
Right.
But that time of day, it should be
Should
released.
be easy.
And I will plan to be with them the whole time they're here. So, and the scope, the size of the crew, it's only 4 people in Darius. So it's a camera person, sound person, producer, assistant, then Darius and me. So.
All right. Well, there'll probably be some autograph seekers once this airs.
I'll make that motion.
You make the motion to
Second.
consider it accepted as public city-sponsored event? Motion and second. Any other questions from
Questions?
Jimmy, please.
Just that, when did this come about? I mean, this was kind of like,
Well, so y'all may know Gary Edwards, who works for Coastal South Carolina, which does us, Myrtle Beach and Hilton Head, was in London about 3 weeks ago, met with the BBC. They said they were interested. They came back to us with the actual dates and information the end of last week. And said we'd like to do it next Friday, the 26th. So it was that quick.
thank goodness we all love Darius and we all love the Windjammer.
Here, here.
And no, you cannot be a backup singer. I know that would be your next question. So
I
no
wouldn't
other.
drop the drone, you know?
Yeah, no other points? Yes, Cindy.
Is there going to have to be any marking off of areas where our public can't be within the area while they're,
No, ma'am.
so there'll be no restrictions to the public, because that's going to be a busy weekend.
Friday morning.
It's Friday, this Friday.
Right.
I know.
Will be pretty clear.
They've already started coming.
Yeah, they actually, they'll do a section with Darius walking down the beach, but they won't, if there are people out there, they want other activity. So,
Very good. All in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, Friday morning,
Thank
it'll be
you very much.
bright and sunny. The sun rises right over
Right.
here.
glad it wasn't this morning.
Right.
Oh, man.
Or tomorrow
morning either. All right, other citizens wishing to address council, please come forward, please. Yeah.
You have to pardon me if I seem all wet. I'm Don Thompson, and I'm a resident of Goat Island, and I'm here with a problem that we think that maybe you can help us fix. The access to Goat Island is becoming more and more restricted as there are more and more cars, more and more people needing to park, more and more visitors. And it's not a problem that any of us anticipated the 30-something years ago that I moved there, and for a lot of the other residents who've been there for quite some time. And it's not something that we think is we can cure by ourselves. We have residents with infants, and we have residents with school-age children, we have retirees, we have people with medical conditions, and what you would have in a normal community. But as far as residents go, there aren't many of us. I think there are possibly 16 to 20 full-time residential houses, maybe 40 residents at the most. And I think that I'm given to understand that the Isle of Palms has a similar breakdown in that we have maybe a third residents, a third weekend vacationers, property owners who vacation, and a third rentals. We have a number of short-term rentals, which is new. Last time I checked, there were some 12 being advertised, and some of them have quite a number of places for people. But that's just some of our problem. The residents could possibly do some things. They all have different arrangements for their parking, and a lot of them use the Marina, a lot of them use Wild Dunes, a lot of them use the Breach Inlet, but mostly the residents have parking places that have been taken care of for a long time, and arrangements that have been in place for a long time. We see some solutions that we could help with, that we could do. We could arrange elective trips to the times when parking is not restricted. There are things that we could do: carpool, Uber, walk, bike when possible. And we could plan parties and gatherings for times when the parking is unrestricted. We could arrange for guests to be picked up from a remote parking area. If we had people coming for the weekend, we could go pick them up in our car and let them park in a remote parking place. We could limit the number of trips that we make and the number of vehicles that we use. I don't really know of much else that we could do. That's for residents. Short-term rentals, I think the people that manage and own the short-term rentals could do quite a bit to reduce the number of cars. For example, if they rent to party, fraternity, whatever, with 1 car per person, they could arrange for the same kind of remote parking, and they could make their renters aware of the parking problem and have them make their own arrangements. They could have shuttles. The short-term rentals could run shuttles to the beach or to local restaurants, etc. And those are things that we could do. What I think is that it looks like there may never be more than 33 full-time residential houses on Goat Island, and maybe less if that breakdown remains the same and is or similar. That would mean of 100 lots, a third would be full-time residents who could be identified by their 4% tax bills, long-term leases perhaps, electric bills, voter registration. It would be not. I don't think it would ever be more than that. Right now, I don't think it could be more than 16 or 20 cars to be accommodated on the Isle of Palms with some sort of identification as residents of Goat Island. And we could, I'm sure that people would be willing to pay for these passes. They're that important. They affect the livability and the property value and the future of the people that want to live there, because as we all know, they're not making any more parking places, and they're not going to stop having young tourists come to the beach. So with that in mind, I'd like to ask you to consider, and I don't know how it would be done, and we could have some dialogue and some communication, but I would like to think of the possibility of finding a way to accommodate 16 cars on the Isle of Palms with passes of some sort that could be identified. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Before you leave, can you give Marie your phone number and address, mailing address, et cetera? We need that for the record and for future communications if we want to reach out to you guys. Others, anybody else wishing to? Go for it.
Hi, I'm Andy Hunt, and the first thing I would like to do, 3305 Cameron Boulevard, Isle of Palm, South Carolina, 29451. First thing I would like to do is apologize to the good council and the mayor, because last time I was up here, I talked forever. Forever. And for those of you who were here last time, you know. And tonight, I'm not going to do that. Y'all were very kind and let me go on. Finally, the mayor cut me off, and it was very nice of him to let me go as long as he did. But I have a stopwatch tonight. I'm going 3 minutes. Okay? I may go. Last time I practiced, I went 3 minutes and 10 seconds. So. And I would also like to thank all of the council members. I gave them all a phone call last night, and for those of you who don't know, they will answer their phone and they will talk to you. They will speak to you, they will ask questions, and they will listen to you. And I would like to thank each and every one of you who spoke to me last night. Thank you very much. And for those of you who don't know, the reason I'm here is because my wife and I are doing a short-term rental on the island, and wait, start, here we go. Ready? For those of you who don't know, we're being told that we can't continue to rent out a couple of bedrooms in our house because we live upstairs, even though we have a valid short-term rental license. So first, let me reiterate that we have done nothing wrong. We followed the ordinances on the website. We applied for a license, and we got it, and all of that is legal. So one question that many of you asked me last night was why? Why can't we live upstairs and rent out the downstairs? After all, I can rent out the entire house to perfect strangers. But the minute I walk in the house, it's illegal. Same number of people, same number of cars, just a technicality that says that I can't be there. And many of you said, well, what is the purpose of this rule? Well, I've been told that the rule was designed decades ago to protect the residential quality of the island. Well, right now, for better or for worse, over 30% of the island is short-term rentals. 30% of the island are long-term rentals. And slightly less than 30% are full-time residents. So those statistics are not consistent, really, with the reason given to me. One gentleman said to me, he said, examine the issue with common sense and fairness. So if, say, Beach House LLC from Rehoboth, Delaware can rent out 6 bedrooms across the street from me, we should be able to rent out 2 bedrooms downstairs. One other point. In 2010, the council voted to up the number of persons legally allowed in a short-term rental from 6 to 12. And other houses were grandfathered in and can have as many as 23 people in their house at one time. That doesn't seem consistent either with the reason that was given me. And it establishes a precedent, if I were a lawyer I would say that city council can and will change outdated rules. So if the primary reason for the rule preventing me from renting the downstairs is outdated and no longer applicable, it should be changed. One person remarked to me that your home is your biggest asset. And why shouldn't you be allowed to use it to generate income to help offset the incredibly high cost of things like insurance and taxes on the island? For those of you who live on the island, you know what insurance is all about. She used it as an example, elderly people who can lose their homes if insurance gets too high. Why not let them rent out a room? It's common sense. It's fair. Another gentleman suggested that I look at other municipalities and see how they're handling it. So I looked at Peninsula Charleston. In Charleston, certain neighborhoods actually voted to create a short-term overlay over the areas of their city where it's legal to do short-term rentals. And also, in Charleston, you can legally operate a bed and breakfast, which is defined as a home where the owners reside and rent out a room, just like us. So that is another precedence. So we have established that the rule preventing us from renting a room out while we reside in the house is outdated and no longer applicable. And we've stated a precedence for allowing bread and breakfast that the owner lives in the house while someone else is downstairs in downtown Charleston. And we've used common sense and fairness as our measuring stick. So one of you also said, if for some reason the council just can't see fit to change the law, at least let us honor the commitments we have made to our renters throughout the end of the year. So what I really want to ask is that you overturn or modify this archaic rule so we may stay on the island for another 41 years. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Very good.
Could I have your copy of your cover? That's covered all right. Thank you very much.
If you need a copy back, she can get it back to you.
I went 18 seconds over.
No, you're good. You're good. Thank you. Others wishing to address?
Hi, Elizabeth Campson, 32 Intercoastal Court. I listened to the audio of the recent Ways and Means meeting and wanted to thank you for including my email in the record. It was long, I know, but the Marina redevelopment project is complex, and emails in times like this are the only voice that I have, so I appreciate that. A few statements were made in the course of the discussion that I'd like to address. First, I'd like to express my disappointment with the decision to leave the jet ski business in its current location. I understand the issue is complicated, and I appreciate the ideas presented by Council Member Ferenz and Mayor Cronin for a potential relocation. I hope this issue can continue to be analyzed. I think a passive use of that dock is best for the residential community as a whole, as well as the neighboring properties. As for the lease the business currently holds, Section 5 states that the leased premises and all improvements located thereon shall be used, blah, 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 in strict compliance with the operational limitations set forth in subsection B. And within that section, it says that the tenant may operate one parasailing motorboat no longer than 35 feet. Last summer, I witnessed the routine operation of 2 parasailing boats from the site, a practice that violates the terms of the lease. The city has leverage here and options when it comes to this lease, and those, I think, should be explored. Second, it was represented that there are fewer businesses operating from the site now than when we purchased it. I have analyzed the numbers and have determined that the then and now numbers are almost identical, and that we have close to 20 separate enterprises working from the site. I won't go into the breakdown now, but I've attached, or I have a detailed kind of breakdown of that I'll give to Marie, and I ask that each of you just maybe peek at it at some point. Regardless of the number, it cannot be disputed that the types of businesses out there have changed. I do not believe that the site-based businesses that were office sites in 1999, or a repair shop, a construction company office, a landscaping company, a yacht sales office, and a real estate office, place the same burden on the site as to parking and other related congestion issues that the businesses currently operating there do. Ironically, even with the different types of businesses operating from the site in 1999, it still had parking and congestion issues. And so this is a long-standing problem related directly to the density and use. And hopefully this redevelopment, can solve all those problems once and for all. Lastly, Councilmember Rice expressed her strong belief that the site needs to operate on a when it is full basis, and I couldn't agree more. Thank you for that. I've heard in various committee meetings that the operation of the site is up to the tenant, and the terms of the current marina lease state that the leased premises and all improvements located thereon shall be used only as a marina, and tenant agrees to operate the marina in accordance with the operational and service requirements of the landlord, which are set forth in an exhibit to that lease. So the city has full and complete control of the operational requirements of that site. And I believe that probably a good reason the site isn't self-contained is related to the practice of unlimited non-resident launching. The city should stop that practice immediately by either establishing reasonable limitations on non-resident launching or eliminating it altogether. The terms of the current lease ensure there's no financial gain to the city for allowing this practice to continue, as any additional rent threshold is so high that the only beneficiary of the unlimited launching ends up being the tenant. Not only does this practice push the parking off-site, but it also pushes all of the garbage there too. Unfortunately, this Sunday evening, the ditch along 41st was full of floating trash. While residents in our area routinely trash sweep, we all do when we walk, after picking up after the marina patrons, we shouldn't have to, most especially in light of the fact that the marina is subsidized with routine transfers of taxes from our general funds, the A-tax funds, and the hospitality fund. Please add our section of the island to the BSO route with an eye towards ticketing for litter. And please also add maybe to the post trash pickup route, on the post weekend, with an eye towards the trash that's left. That said, I believe the most cost-effective and the best solution would be to listen to Councilmember Rice and to set reasonable limits on the site, as you, the landlord, are charged with doing pursuant to the terms of the lease, which limits will keep it operating within its boundaries and which will in turn keep the trash on the site, thereby protecting the integrity of our rights-of-way in our neighborhoods. Thank you.
Thank you.
Single space. Single space.
Single space?
Single space, though.
No, 12 point, no margin. Thank you, Elizabeth. All right, Philip.
Thank you very much. My name is Philip Smith. I live at number 8 Intracoastal Court, most of you know, which is contiguous with the Marina, not only by land, which is probably about 300 feet, but 150 feet of my waterfront is contiguous with your marina operations. So, to say the least, you guys and I are pretty tight neighbors. After last year's city council meetings in the Marina, I felt pretty good we were heading in the right direction to hopefully resolve some issues that we're having with the impact that the tidal wave is having with the residential buffer over there. And I felt pretty good when I left the meetings that you guys were going to allow them to move down the way and let that dock be more passive, as we discussed, with maybe kayakers, paddleboarders, local fishermen, whatever it was going to be down there, but to let it be a better fit with the residential buffer. 2 months ago, I was made aware that the Real Property Committee decided to cut the budget or whatever, for whatever reason, and leave them where they're at. I was very disappointed to hear that. And a note on that is 5 years ago, the city allotted $300,000 to improve that tidal wave dock. And I was able to convince the city that it wasn't a good idea to do that. And so they repaired the dock and was able to save $200,000 or so to put back into the account. So I saved the city $200,000 at that time because they were going to impact us even more than they are today. And we were able to stop them from building a bigger office on the water that was going to be closer to my house. There's 14 jet skis out there within 50 feet of my house, maybe 40 feet. Actually, they drive next to my dock because they got to go around the back of it. 2 ski boats, a parasail boat, and sometimes 2 parasail boats when one comes from Breach Inlet and the other one drops them off, and they rotate because their lease says they're only allowed 1. That's very impacting on Saturday and Sunday. During the middle of the week, when I'm working, I'm sure it's a lot quieter. If you guys go down there on Monday through Friday, you'll say, hey, there's not a lot going on down here. I don't know what Philip's complaining about. I work like most of you people do, and on Saturday and Sunday when I'm trying to enjoy my house is when they are overflowing with customers, business is going, and it goes from 7 or so in the morning till 7 at night, Saturday and Sunday. I can't enjoy my house with that business being so close to us. It's impossible. So last year, my wife and I, after discussing this with the town for 5 years, decided we were going to sell our house and move. After putting the house on the market, every single person I looked at it said they did not want to live next to that. That was very disappointing. So I took the house back off the market, decided I would come back to the town and discuss the problem that we're having again with the town to see if the town would do what I think is right before they write the referendum in August, because that's about my deadline, I think, with you guys doing something about it. Come August, when you write the referendum, it's going to vote, it's going to be hard to turn the ship around. Right now is the time we have to do something if we're going to do it at all. I've participated in town real property committee meetings, I've participated in town council meetings. You know, I've really tried to explain to everybody how impacting this is. I've invited everybody to my house. I've done everything I can as a citizen to express, you know, the impact that business is having and the nuisance is having on our lifestyle at our house. I can't go on my dock and enjoy it with 200 people on the dock next to me continuously. I mean, how could somebody? You know, it has more business sometimes than the boat ramp does. And as Don was saying, they would like a place to access. Well, when the city bought the Isle of Palms Marina, Neil Sawyer and another gentleman from Goat Island asked them if they would lease or sell that dock because there was nothing going on in that dock when you guys bought it. There was no jet skis there. When I bought my land, my house, and built it, there was no jet skis there. Brian started a business with 6, sold it, now there's 16. So they asked to use that dock for the citizens. There's room for parking for Goat Island there. There's room for them to bring up a certain amount of boats. We could accommodate them. They would be a quiet neighbor to another house next door. Just an option, I'm saying, after hearing Don, because they are limited. There's a 50-boat waiting slip to get into the marina. So how can they accommodate the housing on Goat Island? Aren't they more important than someone living in Mount Pleasant who just wants to keep his boat out here? Something to consider. For the small amount of money that the town is receiving, which seems to be a very important issue right now with the marina, cutting the budget, I don't see where their rent that they give the town of $22,000 or somewhat at the end of the day per year amounts to anything that helps you at all. I don't see I'll give you $22,000 a year. Gladly. Gladly, and I'll pay in advance. I won't pay monthly. I would, and then I'll lease it to Don and the guys from Goat Island. And they'll be happy, I'll be happy, and you guys won't have me talking to you all the time. Almost everybody will be happy. So I urge the town council to move forward to resolve the issue before we get into the referendum writing in August, to resolve the issue while the time is still here. I don't know what else to tell you guys from everything you've heard from me. You know, I got very emotional about this. My back's against the wall right now. I really am. I have got 8 weeks until you write the referendum. You know, first it was let's do it, now it's not do it. You know, I've been back and forth on this issue for years. And like I said, when I bought my house, there was no jet skis there. Okay? The town has allowed this to happen. And they've allowed it to grow. And they've allowed it to grow. When my wife and I bought that house, we sat on our porch. I told her that we bought the best lot on the street, overlooking the marina. This is fantastic. There's no house next to me. I could watch what's going on. It was entertaining. Now it's aggravating, and it's only because of that business, not because of what's going on in the marina. I don't mind the boaters. You know, I don't mind what's going on out there. I enjoy watching them. I enjoy the activity. I don't enjoy people in my backyard from everywhere. I mean, it's just not what anybody would want in their backyard. There's no one in this room that would want to deal with what I deal with. And I just ask the town urgently to do something about it, and that's why I'm here to discuss what can be addressed about the situation, if anything at all. And I just need to know if it will be addressed, if you guys want to address it or you don't want to address it, because I've got to do something. And the last thing I want to do is take legal action against the city. I've never done that in my life against anybody in 40 years, and I've never been sued in 40 years. Pretty good for a contractor. Pretty damn good. I've worked for over 250 people on this island in almost 30 years of my life out here, and I've given over hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars in fees to the town for all the work I've done, and you'd be hard-pressed to find anybody who said anything bad about me. You'd be hard-pressed.
Okay. We hear you. I haven't given up. You haven't given up. We'll see where we go.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Okay. Anyone else? Going, gone. All right, now. Reports. I know, but I've gone silent here. I got to come back to life. Okay. All right, we're into our committee reports. I'll report on Ways and Means. I won't have to go through too much of the marina since we've already heard a lot about it. But we did hear about our Marina Enhancement project from Kirby Marshall. He was first up on our agenda. He's been working, as you've just heard from Philip, with the Real Property Committee for the past series of months on cost issues. And he presented a plan and a drawing. The plan has two principal elements. One is the upland side, which is the ground side, if you will. That would come in at a cost of $1.9 million. That involves the parking, the flow of boats relative to parking. You know, needs to have a better experience for everybody that comes there when they are on the ground side. Then we also have the marine side, the water side, as some people like to call it. That's the docks and the infrastructure supporting the docks. That's a $2.1 million endeavor. The docks are basically at their end of life. I haven't checked exactly the life of those. They're 30-some years old. They've never been really adjusted since we acquired the marina 20 years ago now. But the marina plan will enhance the use of kayaks and paddle boards and other safety matters when it comes to the water activities that is going on. Then there's another $800,000 in the financial scope of the project dealing with the engineering, permitting, other costs associated with the overall activity, as well as a contingency fund that's always needed on a project of this scope. Looking at it from as far away as we are right now, although we're getting closer, it's still a moving target in certain respects. There have been no structural changes to the marina since the city acquired it in 1999. We've spent a fair amount of money there dealing with the marina bulkhead, which was failing. We've replaced the bulkhead. We've done other matters. We've obviously had to pay insurance on the properties. We basically used the lease payments that we've had from the property owners to pay the debt that the town incurred when they purchased the property 20 years ago. We've used some of the tourism funds to help pay for those maintenance items, if you will, that were there. We basically used none of the taxpayers' money for maintaining the marina for the last 20 years. But we're about to pay off another year and a half or so. We're about to pay off the marina debt that we incurred when we purchased the property. So we'll have lease income that we can use and devote to this project, which I think will be sufficient over time to pay for this entire project out of the lease holdings that we have there without increasing the lease activities that goes on there. So the project was proposed. We are moving towards a referendum, which would come in November. As Philip just said, we are looking at getting to the details on the referendum wording and structure. That would have to be done by August. So between now and August, we have some more wiggle room that we have to put together, both on the wording, the debt structure, et cetera, and maybe even some of the enhancements features that are in the plan. Originally, we started off and still have a dream of getting a boater infrastructure grant. We have applied through the Fair Basic Elements agencies for a $450,000 boating infrastructure grant. Unfortunately, the award of grants this year is held up and has been moved to the desk of the Secretary of Interior. Is that correct?
That is correct.
So the Secretary of the Interior now is sitting on a pile of recommendations. We do not know if we are in that pile of recommendations, but apparently there are 25 grants that have been proposed from the Department of the Interior. But we're not going to wait for that. We're going to continue on. If we are lucky and it breaks free and are awarded a grant, that's just good to the city. But we're going to proceed on. We've gone too far. We are going to proceed, since it is in the Department of Interior. We are going to contact our legislatures in Washington to see if we can't break some information free. We'd, first of all, like to know if we're in the pile to be awarded. That'd be the first thing. And then second of all, we'd like to get the award placed in a timely fashion such that we can use those proceeds accordingly. So we are going to move forward with a referendum. We approved the Marina redevelopment plan as presented, which requires $4.8 million. Based on the outline presented, with still changes to be made, and do that in a timely fashion such that the wording sets appropriate referendum material together by August of 2017 for a November ballot edition. So that is the activity that's going on for the Marina activity.
One comment. Can we make it clear that the subject to change was a lot of discussion on that particular dock?
On that, yes, of course. There was, I mean...
The referendum would not be put in place until we have that.
We need that clarified for some of us in particular, and we can move it. But that will have to be taken up again through the Real Property Committee and to come back with a recommendation. et cetera. But it is an August deadline as far as I'm concerned. We need to have that clarified before we go anywhere further. And we will have a public presentations on the Marina Enhancement Project after the summer season. So come September, October period, we'll have one or more public forums to explain what is likely to happen there and how it's going to be funded, et cetera. So, what else did we do at Ways and Means? We went through our financial results. We are 10 months through the year. Kind of hard to believe, but we are 10 months through the year. Our general fund expenditures, 10 months would be 83% of the year. Our expenditures are running at 78%, so we're ahead of budget from an expenditure standpoint, or better than budget on, I shouldn't say ahead, but better than budget on an expenditure standpoint. Our revenues are 103% of where they were last year. Our property tax is falling in line with the same property tax we've had for the last series of years, but our overall income is up by 3% from this time last year, and I would hope that would continue. I did report on the fact that our FEMA request project worksheets for Hurricane Matthew, we have received $69,000 in funding, reimbursement of funding from FEMA. So far through April, that's in the financial results. 59,000 is in the general fund because that's where the expenses were incurred, and then $10,000 was returned to the disaster recovery fund because that's where the expense was paid out of. Yet in May, though, I can report that we've already received $117,000 for the work that was done on the beach. If you can remember, we built the dune structure back up on a number of areas on the beach. That's 75% of the total cost, which is FEMA's obligation. The 25% is left for others, and in this case it would fall to us, other than the state has, they have not concluded the budget yet, but if they do, it will either be fully, the 25% will be fully funded by the state through a reimbursement program, or be a portion of the 25%, depending on whether they conform to the state version, the Senate version, or the House version. They're two different, and they're arguing over some percentages as far as how much they reimburse, not only us, but everybody who had been impacted by Hurricane Matthew and the 25% obligation that they had. So I expect to hear more from that as the state moves through their budget process, but we have already received the principal portion that FEMA was obligated to pay us. Our cash balances are good. We're about $3.1 million currently, a couple $100,000 ahead of where we were last year at this time in our general fund, and our overall cash balance is a couple $1 million ahead of where we were this time last year, not including the beach stakeholders funds that we have on deposit, but our tourism funds are up, and our, as Linda said, we're doing so much in capital projects, we've saved so much that our capital projects funds are up, but we're going to start spending those as we go through the course of the next fiscal year. So that was the principal activity of our current general fund activities. Our tourism funds showed no increase year-to-date in our municipal accommodations tax, therefore no increase in our state reimbursement of a tax, but our hospitality tax has increased by 4% over where it was this time last year, so we probably have no more people staying here, but they're eating better or drinking more or something of that nature.
Yeah.
Geez, that's thunder.
This is fireworks.
It's either that or you're not building anything nearby, are you, Philip? Okay, so I think that's thunder. Again, so our tourism funds are holding their own, so that's good news. We moved on into consideration of a proposal that had been presented to us from Clean Energy Collective / South Carolina Electric Gas Community Solar Program. This is a program they're offering us the opportunity to participate in some solar farms being built elsewhere in South Carolina. And if we so agree, we will be participants and subscribers to the farm. And what that means is we pay a monthly fee, a small monthly fee, and receive basically a 9% reduction in our utility bills for all the power consumption that the city has, which is all our street lighting, all our buildings, et cetera. So it winds up to be, not an insignificant reduction. We would be exposed. The sample they gave us is for a fee of $1,900 a year, we'll save almost $15,000. So they're basically giving us back $13,000 for just signing on and being able to say that we're a subscriber as a community solar supporter. This is only available to municipalities. It's only available to schools and churches, and it will be made available at some point to residential users who don't want to put solar panels in their yard or on the roof. They can subscribe through this program, get a reduction in their local usage of kilowatt hours, and feel good about the fact that the power that they're participating in is generated from a solar farm
Mr. Mayor.
elsewhere.
Sir,
Wait, please.
I'd like to make a motion that we participate in this Clean Energy Collective.
I'll second that.
Motion and seconded. Good. Any discussion on this? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None opposed. So the administrator will move on and do the administrative duties with these folks. We sign on, and then we have 90 days to go through the legal documentation to make sure nothing is afoul. This is a consideration. Next item is consideration of FY18 Charleston Transportation Committee request. This is a request that we had. Do I need to find the page?
I don't think so.
This is a request as to give a priority to where, if we applied and were awarded, where would we want the funds to be spent? We gave them two recommendations. The first recommendation that came out of committee was the improvements to the end of the Isle of Palms connector here. If those of us that bike in the area find that coming off the connector on a bike is very dangerous, because you're basically moving into the travel lanes as you come across and make the turn onto Palm Boulevard. So we've already hired Stantec to do an engineering workup as to what it would take to make a path for bikers to be able to exit off of the highway down ramp safely and turn right onto Palm Boulevard into the bike lanes. And that would be our first priority. And our second priority, of course, is the bike path from 21st Avenue all the way to 57th Avenue. We've been successful this last year after 3 or 4 years not using these funds, but in this case using DOT and federal funds to get a bike lane put from Breach Inlet up to the 21st turn where it's possible, and that's good. Now we need to focus on the 21st to 57th Avenue. And this is one way to apply and get some monies and start a sinking fund to accumulate enough funds to make that possible. So I'll make those two recommendations. Do we do that in that order?
Second.
Motion and seconded. Any discussion?
Mr. Mayor, you
Please.
keep on saying cyclists, but it also includes pedestrians, too.
Pedestrians too. Yeah, I'm sorry. Pedestrians are probably in the most danger, frankly, but they don't have any reflectors or lights typically. So, okay. So, all in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion carries. We moved on to approve $3,000 overage in the award of a contract in the amount of $30,998 for state contract pricing for the Benson Ford extended cab for public works. So I'll make that as a motion.
Second.
Motion seconded. Discussion. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion carries.
We have a tornado warning, folks. So just in case.
If anybody wants to leave to go protect their loved ones, or call them or do something, they may not know. I'm going to keep going, though.
Yes.
Award of a contract to the Greenery for $72,000 for citywide landscaping and greenery gardening services. That's
Make
cool.
that in the form of a motion.
Second.
Motion and seconded. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Approval of a sponsorship in the amount of $7,500 for the 2017 Turtle Trek to be held at dusk on Saturday, September 23rd. That's long-range planning. This is from our ATAX. This is the second year for the Turtle Trek that was very, very successful last year. I can't remember the number, how many participants, but it was a big number.
500. They limit the participants. Wasn't it 500 last year?
500 and
I'll make that motion, Mayor.
motion and seconded. All right. Any discussion? All in favor of the Turtle Trek, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. And I'm just reporting here that under our Chapter 20 of our purchasing section, a recommendation for sole source approval of Motorola radios, chargers, parts, and services with a total cumulative expense greater than $10,000. That's doesn't need a motion, correct?
No, it does because it is sole source. It's a different,
Oh,
it's
okay.
different from, the fact that I'm just announcing to you all
Okay.
expenditures.
So I'll make a motion that we allow Motorola sole source for our radios.
Second.
Motion second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Under the same guidelines, we'll go for a recommendation for sole source for Safe Industries for our fire turnout gear. Make that as a motion.
Second.
Seconded. Discussion.
And just for the public's. Yeah. I just asked Desiree to make sure that large party down in Wild Dunes is notified.
Okay. I'm gonna call down there because I can't get rid of
Okay.
If anything can go wrong for that party, it will.
Yeah.
Oh, boy.
It's a big deal.
Okay, you're going to say something about
Yes, just for the public and also for the recording, City Council has a justification for those sole source contracts that's included in the packet documents and was included at Ways and Means as well.
Very good. All in favor of the recommendation, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The last item we considered was a recommendation from the ATAX Committee for a 2-year obligation totaling $55,000 for the production of an IOP magazine. We took no action on this and recommended that this be discussed with the CVB, who was here tonight but got away. I'm going to see him tomorrow on this subject, but I could have done it tonight if I had known he was coming. So we took no action on that, pending some recommendations from the CVB as to whether it's a worthwhile venture to put books with our name on it in all the visitor center. So that's the report from the Ways and Means Committee. Any questions, Jimmy?
Mr. Mayor, going back to the Marina redevelopment plan and kicking it back to the real property, I mean, this takes time. We got 60 days here, and we're going to eat it up real quick. Is there any way we can have a special council meeting where we all meet together and let's work on this quickly, as opposed to kicking it back to real properties, going to bring it back to council, and I mean, we're just losing time by doing it that way.
Why don't you send your recommendations to real property?
Again, we're talking about losing a 30-day period there.
Well, we're talking tomorrow, we can send them to them.
Well, we have a meeting in a few days, so.
Okay, I'm just making sure that we can do this quickly.
We'll see what they come up with, and if we have to have a special meeting after that, we can do that.
Okay, I'm not afraid to meet.
No, I understand.
I don't think any of us are
No, but,
afraid to meet.
right. I mean, hell, we're in a tornado watch and we're still there.
Warning.
Warning.
It's a warning.
Oh, okay,
Funnel
sorry.
it's a warning.
That's the worst, right?
Yes, that's the funnel cloud has been spotted.
Not in Kansas anymore.
Were you ever in a large building and the fire alarm goes off and you wonder, do I have to get out or is this just a test? Right? Huh? You know, most people just sit there, like us tonight. All right, no other questions? Let's move on to public safety.
Thank you.
We're going to put you on a
Thank you,
quick
Mr. Mayor.
clock.
Quick clock, okay. We met Monday.
Oh, well, let me make one more point. I forgot this.
So much for your quick clock.
You know, I mentioned this at the Ways and Means. This document that I'm showing this to everybody on council that we share and is usually the first page and first item and maybe the only item people use to understand our financial activities for the last month. Is an excellent, it's a template for the financial department and us. I was hoping that we could create for other departments I'm looking at the administrator here, a similar template, not necessarily so financially driven, but in some cases statistically driven, so that we can measure things on a systematic basis monthly. So, Donnie doesn't have to report, and we don't have to read how many yards of debris he's picked up each month. We can look at the document and see it quickly, and the committee can see it quickly, things of that order. So I'll sit with the administrator later, and maybe then each department can work with each committee chair or something. But I think a quick reference document would be easy to absorb, easy for the community to understand on some of the statistical matters and maybe even other matters that are important for the city that we bury in 68 pages of council minutes. So I'll shed my peace.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Forever.
Thank you again. As I said, the Public Safety Committee met Monday, May 8th. We had Jenny and Scott Pierce of number 4 9th Avenue were before us to talk about parking on 9th Avenue. And this will be included in our after action for the 2018 parking plan for consideration of a change, and that would be to allow parallel parking only. We got an update on encroachments to remove, efforts to remove encroachments in the right-of-way. The chief is continuing to work with Chief Buchanan, with the owners on the north end of the island as well as a couple on the south end. Tourist season appears to have already started. We all know that. And we'll be looking into these. Some residents have voluntarily complied with the request to remove the encroachments in the right-of-way, so we are making progress. Gave us the status of clearing overgrown lots. Some have been cleared, we've tracked down the people and finally got them the information they needed. I think some tried to play hide and seek with us that we're out of state, but I think we caught up with them. A couple are going to be having new construction soon, so they'll be cleared, and letters been sent to several others. There was a request to have the pedestrian crossing signs up all year round. This was a request of a citizen. The citizens we've received some advocacy for that. These signs are very heavy. They have to be put up and removed every day. That's something we will be looking into, as well as possibly request to have more crossings on Palm Boulevard. In my experience, the SCDOT likes to have a marked crosswalk about every 3 blocks on the Isle of Palms. Along that line, we've gotten permission to get 5 more portable signs and utilize them on the weekends and holidays. And as an example, the July 4th holiday they'd probably be up for the whole week because of the impact that tourists have on us. Under new business, we discussed the consideration of using Code Red, which is the service for notification to the public of important information. It's something we discussed. There is a program that Charleston County has that's called Everbridge, that's at no cost to the citizens, and it's something you can go on to our website and actually sign up for, but the Chief Graham is going to be looking into that. That is a service that Sullivan's Island currently uses. And Chief Graham also noted the fire department maintains a priority assistance list of residences who have been notified, who will be notified in case of emergencies on the island, like major storms. We discussed the CTC project requests, discussed sole source for Motorola radios, which we just took care of, discussed kiosk and breach inlet. Chief Buchanan reported talking with a senior engineer with SCDOT who said as long as the property is under SCDOT control, it will remain a public parking lot, and they would not allow public parking kiosks to be installed. The city was also told that if the city wanted to take over the upkeep of that lot, we could probably do it. However, I'm reminded of the Sullivan's Island side of the Breach Inlet Bridge that disappeared after Hurricane Hugo. I don't know whether that would be a good thing for us to do. However, it's something that we all need to start thinking about should we decide that we may want to do that. So, you know, give it some consideration, get back to me, get back to Linda, let her know. We'll kind of see. I'll say right now that I'm against the city taking over anything that the SCDOTs do to the expense involved. Went over to the departmental reports. Battalion Chief Smith gave me one for the fire department. They responded to a lightning strike, which no active fire was found. They took care of that. Rescued a dog trapped in a small island. Rescued 3 people stranded on Capers Island in a deflated raft. And they responded to a total of 104 calls. Of that number, 44 were EMS calls. The fire inspector inspected 12 public occupancy structures. Vehicle maintenance was high. The radiator replacement on engine 1001 cost nearly $9,200. And we had another water pipe that we had to fix. It was leaking. Then we went on to the police department. Chief Buchanan gave the report. Saturday, April 8th, and this is a learning lesson. I know we all have given this lesson to our kids. They went to a residence for a noise violation. They found 19 underage individuals that were arrested for drinking. That's something that you don't want to have happen when you're in high school or if you're just out of high school and at that age. Chief recognized Administrative Assistant Tracy Waldron for her hard work and dedication to ensure a successful audit for the National Crime Information Center / Criminal Justice Information Center with South Carolina law enforcement and the FBI. So thank you, Chief. Thank you for the police department for having a good audit. Communications specialists answered 3,984 calls, 2,807 for the police. There were 167 traffic stops, 33 tickets issued. Officers made 58 arrests. The majority of those were for the underage liquor violations. Police department received 19 noise complaints and 4 citations were issued. And Councilmember Birdworth stated that the chief might want to take a look at one of the parking signs on 28th Avenue.
I got a warning.
Okay.
Collisions are up. That's it. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Any questions for public safety, Jimmy?
I just want to thank Chief Graham for bringing up about balloons and the problems they're causing on the beach. I think we need to have better public awareness about the effects of balloons and plastics on the beach. So I thank you for bringing it up.
Mr. Mayor?
Please, Cindy.
In your report, Marty, you mentioned that the communication specialist answered over almost 4,000 calls. Now, these are those that come directly to that line, not to the 911 dispatch.
These are all calls.
These are all calls. So it's the ones that go to the dispatch as well as
Right.
these. Okay, I just thought that was an awful high number.
We need more people.
All right, Public Works, please.
Okey dokey, Public Works met on Wednesday, May 3rd. Attending the meeting were Councilman Ward, myself, Director Pitts, City Clerk Copeland, Councilmember Kinghorn was absent. We also had Administrator Tucker and Fregoso present. We acknowledged that the press and public were duly notified in accordance with the Freedom of Information Act. Citizens' comments, we had Ann Mahan, who basically thanked everybody for the work that's being done in trying to clear the lots on Wills Way, and we've already seen where some of them are answering and some of them aren't. But it was nice to get a thank you in that that is happening. Director Pitts then gave us his report, and I can tell you all that when Donnie gives us the report, it's in the form of a graph, which is very easily attainable. I mean, I think that's a good idea to have something that's very visual, that you don't have to read through 20 pages to go. But that debris collections were up, and even though the department was down 2 drivers, the director stated that he has been able to avoid Saturday work. Vehicle maintenance was up as expected due to the purchase of tires, but he's also confident that at the end of the year we'll still be under budget. Edie's completed the cleaning of the scheduled ditches and drop inlets in accordance with the maintenance plan, as well as a successful hazardous waste shred day, which were reported as the highlights for the month. A motion was passed to add $3,000 to the budget, which we have already gone through. The project for NPDES, which is our major project across the street, is behind schedule, which we knew was going to happen almost certainly. And they are already starting to hand in change orders. But we've been assured that the budget should be within a 10% of variance. Recycling services, if you saw on the website, we will begin Monday, June 5th for the twice-a-week garbage collection, and June 7th for the weekly recycling, which is new for us for this year. Staffing, we had a discussion on staffing simply because the Personnel Committee had not met, and yet we were concerned that the director was down on some of his personnel, and as we discussed it, Assistant Fregoso was able to give us some insight in that within 5 years, there is going to be a nationwide shortage of people that want to work for Public Works. And so we really need to start looking at what our transition plan would be if in fact we are not able to find staffing for the garbage collection and the recycling. The recycling is taken care of by county, but we do all of the garbage and the trash. So, you know, I encourage the Personnel Committee to start looking at a transition plan for us, whether it be incentives and or automation going forward, so that within 5 years we won't be caught unawares, because we know that this is coming down the pike. Update on resurfacing of SCDOT. I think it's pretty well finished. I think the nightmare is over, but we have some painting, striping that has to be done yet, and we're not quite sure when that is going to be completed.
It'll be after June 6th.
After, okay, great.
Well,
that is very nice to know.
They have something to do on Sullivan's Island that has to be done before they restripe the entire project.
Okay.
And so it'll be after the 6th, and it'll be done at night.
And we had hoped that it
It'll
would
be
at
done
least be at night.
It'll be at night.
Okay. We then discussed some of
But
the...
before you go on, the reason they do it at night is because when it's wet, people like to drive over the...
and make a mess.
You know,
Make those white marks go.
well, you can imagine how many would have.
Yeah. We then went into a little bit of a discussion about the multi-use path on Waterway Boulevard, because one of the things we want to do is make sure that that 6-foot path is actually cleared. If you walk down or ride your bikes down Waterway, you notice that the 6-foot path in some areas is like 2 feet because of all the overgrowth. So Donnie and his folks are going to work on getting it prepared, and then we're going to have a vendor come in and actually do the rest of the work to uncover all of that path. We discussed the Charleston County Transportation funding request, which we've already covered. We then went to clarification of the recycling of debris, because it had been a question by a resident as to the fact that we are not actually sending our recyclables to a recyclable center, and that's only because it's not built yet. It's in the process of being built, so our recyclables are sent to Myrtle Beach, but it's only because ours has not at this time been constructed yet. So it will in time.
It just broke ground.
Yes, it will in time be carried on that. Our next meeting will be Wednesday, June 7th at 11 o'clock, and we're adjourned at 11:52, under 1 hour.
Okay.
Just one thing I want to clear
Please.
up. The recycling that goes to Myrtle Beach, that is a recycling center.
Yes, it is.
So it's not like we're taking to Myrtle Beach to dump it.
Right, right. It is a recycling center. The other thing I failed to mention, and because it's not yet, but as soon as we get that path on Waterway cleaned up for the first time, the heavy work being done, I would like to see some, resident input in terms of like adopt a block, where we can keep it free of some of the debris that gets thrown out there and the leaves that go, so that Donnie's doesn't have to be there every week, because we can't afford that. But I feel like if they do the first job and get it really looking good, then we can help them keep it looking good. So look forward to Neighborhood Watch website, and we'll start to see if we can't get some residents involved.
Mr. Mayor.
Walk the dog with a blower.
Yes.
Great idea. I'd like to see the Public Works Department, if they take that on, to expand that to include all the little islands on Hartnett and Forest Trails.
Okay.
Some blocks are great at keeping them up and it looks good, and some people
Don't. Okay.
throw their trash out there.
May I add one little thing to that? Around the 3700 block, 3600 block of Hartnett, there's one council member who's down there taking care of those islands on a regular basis. Marty Patelli. Thank you.
All right.
That's
We're not going to put up a sign.
No.
Marty Patelli.
Right. And we're not going to put up signs, adopt a block.
No,
That's-
exactly.
No more signs.
All right.
No more signs.
We had no rec committee meeting, but
I
does
just
the rec
wanna-
committee have a report?
Well, I don't have a report. I just wanted to announce that the Piccolo Spoleto sand sculpting is Saturday, June 3rd, from 9 in the morning until noon. And that the beach run, which is already taking participants, is July 15th. That's it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Personnel committee have anything other than our sweepstakes?
In terms of personnel, we still are looking for 5 BSOs, 1 part-time animal control, 1 full-time communications specialist. So that's a total of 6 full-time, 5 of which are full-time temporary, and 1 part-time. The rest of the departments, with the exception of building department, we have 1 business license clerk opening, and we'll have another one in August pending as well.
Okay.
Thank you. Oh,
Sweepstakes.
sweepstakes. April sweepstakes. Recreation Department, Aaron Sweet. And the Fire Department, Chris Puckhaber. Police Department, Sergeant Matt Storen. And in Public Works, Willie Powell. Or the Withers.
All right. Thank you very much.
The worst hasn't exactly arrived yet.
The worst isn't here yet.
I'll talk fast.
So now we're up to real property, speaking of worst.
Okay.
Sorry.
All right, the real property meeting committee met on 9:30 Monday, May 8th, with all members in attendance. Under citizens' comments, I reported that the committee was in possession of a letter from Council Member Kinghorn asking that the committee consider boondocking in the municipal parking lot in the off-season as a source of additional revenue to the city. A copy of the letter is attached to the historical record of the meeting. Under comments from Marina tenants, Charlotte Pope reported that on the advice of her legal counsel, a new lease amendment proposal would be presented in our June meeting. She also reported that the storm drain to eliminate standing water under the restaurant had been completed, and that they will have a shuttle service operational by Memorial Day weekend to transport their employees from off-site parking to and from the restaurant. Under old business, we covered the Marina, and we've certainly covered it tonight. So our task was to try to pare down the $6.4 million, and we managed to get it under 5, which is still a huge number. And we will look at the next meeting, we'll consider Mr. Smith's suggestion. So on to the referendum. Administrator Tucker noted that the language used in the referendum should note borrowing in the amount of $5.5 million roughly, which would include the dredging project, which we need to do no matter what, whatever else happens. She said the language might be about borrowing an amount greater than the cost of the marina development project itself. That's what we would request. She pointed out that the original marina debt has not only been paid off by tenant rents, but also tourism funds, and the city would be looking to do the same thing again. So, and reiterated that we have to get ourselves organized in order. The referendum has to be done by August to get on the November ballot. Next was the discussion of the Morgan Creek Grill lease amendment, and as you noted before, the tenant was not prepared. Discussion of replacement of the walk-in freezer was also deferred. We've awarded the landscaping contract, which we've already done. And we're still working on beach access signs. We have 2 bids, and we tend to feel we'll go with the local one. Since the beach season is already underway, we're thinking about getting this done after the summer. But we'll look into whether the vendor can hold the price, and when, even if he could do them right away, when he can construct them.
Sorry. It talks to me.
A tornado warning. Okay. So update on the public restrooms. They're all back in service. I assume the porta potties are all gone, right?
They
So
are.
everything has basically been updated, painted, new mirrors, new sinks, toilets, urinals. The outside of 3 walls have been painted. And next will be, after the summer, the new toilet doors and the work on the building itself by Leolio. Consultants are working on that design now. We were also told that the director and Administrator Tucker had held a meeting with the volunteer coordinator with Keller Williams Real Estate about painting the back wall. So we painted 3 walls, but the wall facing the condos we haven't touched to make it consistent. And additionally, the city learned that the neighboring condominium owners had spoken to Greta Cruzy about painting a mural on that backside at their expense. I have no idea if that's gone anywhere. We started to look at suggestions to generate revenue in the off-season, which we talked about. The parking at Breach Inlet has been sort of discussed tonight. And we talked about the use of the lot in the winter. An avid camper, Councilmember Rice, said that she was surprised by the comments of citizens made about using the large municipal lot for boondocking. She opined that the committee would need to do extensive research if they intended to recommend that to full council. On the other hand, Councilmember Rice thought that boat storage in the off-season was a viable alternative for increasing revenue. Mr. Berrigan quoted that his rates in the off-season are $200 a month. So this is something that I think we want to research some more and look at and see what it would cost and what are the pros and cons. It might be helpful to the citizens. They don't have to keep their boats in their side yard, and it may be a revenue generator for the city. One member of the committee had to leave due to another commitment, and therefore we will deal with extending the meters on Front Beach in our June meeting. We will discuss this next meeting. Another possible question would be whether to extend the paid parking in the lots at the same dates. All tenants are current on their rents, and our next meeting will be June 12th at 9:30 a.m. in the conference room.
Okay, thank you. Ted?
I'd like to comment with regard to boat storage versus boondocking and having campers come into the lot in the off-season. The primary purpose of that is to generate revenue and opportunity for our businesses. A boat sitting there idly is not going to do that. If you have people coming through, you have an opportunity that they're going to use our shops and restaurants, which we need in the off-season. You have the opportunity that once having visited the island, they might come back and rent homes and engage in other activities, not to mention sharing with their friends. So I would request that the committee think about smart utilization, that utilization that adds value, as opposed to something that's dormant. And thank you for taking it up.
Okay. Anyone else? Jimmy?
I believe we've talked about this boondocking before, and I think we had first time in my 6 years, we had full council chambers coming and talking against it, and I thought that was a dead issue, but it seems to keep on resurfacing.
Well, I think there's no
It's
harm.
not before us, though.
Yeah, there's no harm in talking.
And not only should it be a dead issue, we didn't give the opportunity to respond to the citizens' comments. And in fact, a week prior, at our Ways and Means meeting, it was supported to have a test case for one season to demonstrate the viability of this. And what we described as a test case would resolve 90% of the issues that the citizens raised. But we didn't give them the opportunity to explain how we would manage the facility.
Okay, we'll bring it back up and we'll just pack the chamber again.
Okay.
I just need a
Sandy, please.
procedural clarification. If we have a vote at council that either votes it down or there is no second, so therefore it is dead, basically, then any member of council can write a letter to a committee and say, please put it on your agenda? I'm just not
Well,
clear on the...
There was no vote against it. There was no vote. I don't know
So
if that
as
makes
long
a
as there's
difference. That
no
would be-
vote, then you
Sterling's.
can bring it back. Is that
It's
true?
referred to the committee, right?
No.
No,
No.
No.
There was just no vote.
there was just no second.
There's
There
no
was no
second
second,
to
the
the
motion was
motion.
made, and there was no second. And I don't think that, I mean, the letter that was written was not placed on the agenda
No.
for the Real Property Committee. It was just noted that the committee had all received the letter.
But voting for or against anything, of course, we all have the prerogative to bring the issue back up.
I'd like to hear from the attorney.
I think, I'll have to go back and look at the minutes, but I thought that it was deferred, or not
No,
deferred,
no.
but council didn't vote on it and just said send it back to the real property.
No.
That was
No.
for the parking lot
That was for the
extension
of the
Two
two,
on either
sun,
side.
spring and fall on the front.
So Sterling addressed the question. There was an issue about
Is there-
raising the issue, and I said, of course, as a legislative body, we can raise any issue at any time.
I mean, a motion can come back in front of council at any time. So if somebody wanted to put that on the agenda again, and it was acceptable to the mayor to put it on the agenda, you can bring back a motion that has failed in the past. I'm
So
not
the
sure
ca-
how that was.
Is it considered failed if there's no vote? I mean, it's.
It didn't
Yes.
receive.
Okay.
Well, I'm sorry, I should just say failed, or that it just, the vote didn't
There was-
happen, or.
Right.
Right,
Died
exactly.
for lack of a second.
Died
Lack
for
of a
lack of a
second.
second.
So it's, you can continue to, keep trying. Any council member that wants to, keep advocating for something can keep trying to, get that in front of council again. I mean, at some point, I think, it becomes, it would be something that probably would not be selected to be put on the agenda if it continued on and on and on. But, there's no problem with raising a motion again. That's different from changing something that you've already done. So we've talked about that before, where you want to go back and amend a
Reconsideration.
Right.
motion, or you want to maybe change your mind on how you voted. That's different. But if the motion fails, or it just, doesn't ever get voted on, or for whatever reason, you can bring it up again.
So the
I'm still not clear on how it got to the committee level, unless the committee decided to put it on the agenda.
It wasn't on the agenda, I just accept a letter, read a letter into the record.
So it wasn't on the agenda.
So
But it was
it was,
discussed.
I mean, I think that is more like
It's
what would be
discussed both
considered a
stories.
public comments
Both
type of
Right.
thing. So, I mean, I, have advised against doing that in the past for council members to attend meetings and committee meetings and give, public comments on certain things. So in this sense, it was a written letter instead of, that type of personal advocating at the meeting.
So the procedure then is to send a letter to either the mayor, if you want it on the agenda, and to the chair of a committee, if you want it discussed in that committee? Is that the procedure?
I would
just want-
recommend against giving your opinions in written form. However, I think you can certainly ask, that it be brought up. It would still be up to the committee chair whether or not to put it on the agenda, I believe. And then also if you wanted to bring it up to the mayor to be put on the agenda for a subsequent council meeting. That's, not always going to be a promise that it will be addressed, but you can certainly, there's nothing wrong with asking for that. I think that that's different, asking for something to be on the agenda than to give your opinion on something, either in person at a meeting or by written comments, so.
Patrick?
Subsequent to that meeting, I think there were a lot of answers to the questions that were raised by the citizens, and I agree with Councilman Brickworth that what's wrong with the conversation? Let's have the conversation. Let's address those concerns. There wasn't an opportunity that night to address those concerns, and I think there's plausible answers to them. So I think it's worthy of further investigation and discussion.
If that committee wants to consider it, it's up to them.
Well, excuse me.
Sure.
It just seems like it's really clear. The citizens spoke loud and clear. They didn't want it. And it came up for a motion, and there wasn't a second. If there had been a second, there would have been plenty of discussion that night. But the citizens came out in droves saying they didn't want it. And I think if it comes back up, you're just going to ask them for more irate citizens.
The citizens'
Mr.
comments.
Mayor, I think I heard one council member said he would pack the room again, which leads me to believe that the folks were requested to come. That's neither here nor there, but if we're going to have a conversation on it, I think it's worth having a conversation in which everyone is involved, not just the folks that want to make noise about it. The other side might want to make noise about it. Let's talk about all these things.
But let's also be honest about what was proposed the week prior and the citizens' comments. And they were two completely different things. What was proposed and what we voted on and approved was a managed system designed to create economic development in the off-season and have a demonstration project, then evaluate the efficacy of continuing it. The citizens' comments, however they were gerrymandered, were this is going to be Hell's Angels coming to town, this is going to be a disaster, it's going to be like Animal House. Since we're having the conversation, Mayor, and to help educate and inform all of us, I'd like to ask the chief to come to the mic and answer some questions.
Chief B? Or
On what subject?
On this subject.
On camping, I guess.
We're in the Real Property Committee report.
It's not even on the agenda.
We just had a 10-minute discussion about this. Why don't?
It's not on the agenda.
We're still having a discussion about it.
But it's not on the, it wasn't on their agenda either.
She mentioned it as part of her report.
Why
Why wouldn't we want to hear the benefit of a non-partial observer and someone who's in charge of law enforcement now? Why are we running from something we don't understand?
I believe this should be vested in the Real Property Committee. If they want to take it up again, they should hear it in clear consideration of all the inputs from both citizens and the staff, et cetera. And then if they
This
bring
doesn't
it,
have to be controversial. I think it needs to be informative. And we didn't address the concerns of the citizens.
this item never came through the committee. It only went to Ways and Means.
Just a clarification, the item on the agenda for the Real Property Committee was consideration of suggestions for use of city property to generate revenue during the off-season. That was the item on the Real Property agenda.
Okay.
So it was on the agenda.
So it was on the
No,
Not specifically.
not specifically
But the use of the
boondocking.
lot, yeah.
So,
Well, perhaps we can get the chief to come to Real Property.
that would be the best. He's very interested in that.
You can bring your camper.
He's not going to be able to.
That's where they should start and be recommended for use of the property, given the other options that are available for that property, which is what you're trying to digest. And if it bubbles up, then we can take it up again. So that's where I'd like to leave
On
it.
that report, let's get off of the boondocking, but talking about the total cost estimates and what was deferred and what was taken out, the marine elements started at 3 million, and the reductions or deferrals were 800,000. But I want to make clear, of that 800,000, 650 was dredged, right? So,
Right.
in actuality, we still have a cost of $650,000 we've got to come up with,
No matter what.
no matter what.
Correct.
Okay, so even though we sort of took it out of the 3 million, we still know it's over here, we got to pay for it.
Well,
Okay.
it's not really an enhancement
Right.
part of it. It's not part of the
Right.
project.
Okay,
It's
so-
considered-
And I don't think it's a good precedent to put up something that we must do in a referendum.
It's
You
maintenance.
know, it's maintenance.
But the docks we must do, right?
Huh.
Well,
Yes, they're
Yes.
they're risking the being safety.
Right. The docks are falling in, so we have to do that. So
Sure.
what's the cost of those? Are they
well,
in?
they're part of
They're in there.
Yeah, they're part of
That's-
this.
yeah,
So if
huge
the
part.
docks are $1 million,
I think
then
there's
that's something
800,000.
we have to do. So again, those marina elements that we're saying are adding, changing.
Yeah, but we're not just replacing the docks. We're reconfiguring the entire
Okay.
arrangement.
So
both
while
in
we,
coastal-
while we have to replace them, we might as well reconfigure them.
Exactly,
Right.
make them efficient and
And
give us more.
then the last,
linear
only
flow.
last point is, because we're not going to get probably not going to get the big grant, then we can revert a lot of that transit dock space to other uses, correct? So we can add to the number of spaces that are available for resident docks, and that we now have a list of 53 before you can get a slip. So maybe some of that transit dock space now that was going to be part of the big grant, and we added more because it would make the grant look better, we can kind of revert those back to other usage.
I just referred to the real property committee that has to move those
things
move those
around.
deck chairs around.
And one of the things that would be nice, I know in Kirby and ATM has done an awful lot of work, but for me, when you see this big, long dock, for me, how many boats can in that big, long dock? Is that 4 slips? Is that
What
1
size-
slip?
what size
Is it
boat are you-
six?
what size boat are you dealing with?
Right, but that's the point, in that how many of those slips are already taken up by boats? In other words, we've got rental boats, we've got all these other things. I'd like to see how much of this dock space is already taken up. Now, they've got names again, associated with them, like the boat rentals and
Oh,
the
yeah.
exhibit, all those sorts of things. It would be nice to know exactly how much dock space is being taken up by all these businesses. I asked Kirby at one
Okay.
point.
All right. Any other questions for real property? Moving on. Yeah, you have in your possession minutes from the accommodations tax. You have in your possession minutes from the planning commission. Any comments, additions?
Comment.
Jimmy?
Just set me straight here. The Board of Zoning Appeals, they are kind of like a quasi-judicial, right?
Correct.
Their decisions, we can't even discuss those.
We can sue them.
Yeah. But the Planning Commission, things that they discuss, we can discuss.
Sure.
Right. Well, I like.
They make recommendations to us.
Right. Well, what was the Planning Commission's recommendation regarding Mr. Hunt's property?
They chose unanimously not to modify the zoning.
Well, I'd like to make a motion that we give Mr. Hunt a 1-year variance.
We can.
Why not?
Only the Board of Zoning Appeals can give a variance.
Can we refer this to refer this to the Board of Zoning Appeals?
No, he has to make an appeal. He has to
do it.
He has to make an appeal to the Board of Zoning Appeals.
But we can't do a thing.
We can't do a thing. For the reason that they're independent.
Right, I just want to make sure that.
But one question on that.
Mm-hmm.
Even though he got a permit through the city to do it.
but he didn't.
He got a
Got a rental permit.
he got a rental permit. He can rent
The
his
zone
house.
is- the zoning
It
is the
doesn't-
problem.
The permit doesn't say, his application doesn't say, I want to rent a part of my house. You follow me?
I follow you.
The permit is for the address, 3305, not for part of the house. It's for the house, as in all these other properties, it's for the property.
Yeah, that's something we need to look at.
Right.
Because in my
It's zoned for
opinion,
single
just
family, right?
briefly, quickly, I'd rather have somebody living in the house upstairs and keeping things in control than just turning it over to 23 people that are all strangers. And you're going to have a lot more problems if the owner of the house is right there supervising the short-term tenants. But that's for a later date, right?
That's for a later date. Carol has a point.
So then I think we need to somehow look at tweaking the ordinance so that it would work. But I don't have a solution on how you do that, but like he said, there's got to be some municipality who's figured out exactly how to keep it under control so it doesn't become boarding houses.
Yeah, I know. This is an
Yeah.
Airbnb issue all
Right.
over the state and all over the country.
I mean, because it's...
And they haven't figured it out yet, by the way.
Mr. Mayor, I've lived on the island for a long, long time. As far as I can remember, B&Bs were never allowed.
Correct. They're
Which
only allowed
this would be classed as a B&B.
Right.
That could be something we need to look at.
Right.
But that's the way it is right now.
But he could have roommates in his house, could he not?
You can do all sorts of things, yes, magically, but you can't sublet. We shut down how many? In Grand Pavilion, there were 15, 20 units there, that properties that had to be shut down because they were they had lockout rooms, which is the same thing as having a secondary resident in your. It gets into fire codes. The homes aren't built to conform to fire codes when there's multiple occupants. So you're into multiple. You get into duplexes and all that other stuff. So all sorts of issues get raised. So any other points? So that's the.
I have a question on the ATAX minutes. The budget for ATAX is going to be 80% higher this year than last year. And I went into the code to see the use of ATAX funds, and I realize we have someone who sits on the committee that will help us keep out of trouble. But the question I have is, having gone an 80% jump, if I were sitting on a committee and there was a municipality that had an 80% jump, I'd start looking at it. And one of the things my fear is in paying off debt. It's pretty clear in the code that ATAX money cannot be used to pay off existing debt. And yet we are using that to pay off the Marina.
With permission.
With permission.
Yes.
Okay, so we've gotten permission to do that. The same way with Marina bulkhead. I'm not sure how that puts heads in beds, except if you think about it as a tourist attraction.
Correct.
Which it should not be, because we have said this marina is our residence marina, but now we're using ATAX money because it's a tourist attraction. It seems like we're speaking out of both sides of our mouth. I just want to be clear that we're not putting ourselves into any kind of jeopardy in a review, since this year we're using, over $2 million. I mean, it's a lot of ATAX money. And I realize it came at a time where we're using monies that we had saved, and so therefore we're spending them now. But my fear is in this budget that we have, we were caught with having maintenance budget that we didn't anticipate. We didn't know that the Hill report was going to come back with some $1.6 million that we needed to spend. But we didn't do anything in this budget to reduce the budget so that we could do that 1.6. We had our budget. In March, we had a budget, and I said at that time, why don't we pass it now? Because it's not going to change. Well, it did. We added $1 million to it. We didn't take anything out of the budget to absorb that $1 million in maintenance we had to do. So my fear is, as we go along, people, they're going to start looking at us. I just want to make sure that we are doing exactly what the code of ATAX says we can do. And if, we're told that we've been given permission to pay off the bond. Well, are they going to pay off the next $5 million bond also? I mean, it seems like we're using ATAX monies to pay off debt, which is not putting heads in beds.
Well, frankly, we use the lease income exceeds the debt obligation, so we're
May I make
we're
a
using
point?
the
No,
lease.
come on.
It does.
No, it doesn't. You look at we are losing $500,000 at the Marina a year. $500,000. If you look at
The
all the
lease-
bond issues, plus the insurance, plus this,
No, I
plus
didn't,
that.
I said it paid off the debt. It doesn't pay for the entire operations of the
Right.
marina.
Well, you can also say, no, it doesn't pay the debt, it pays for over here.
Well-
You're just, where do you want it to say that
Right.
money's going to?
Can I just
The
make a point about
Total amount
ATAX?
is going to be much more than what we've got.
You cannot hold on to the ATAX money forever. You have
2
to.
years.
Right.
Right.
So, you do have to
Right.
spend it, so I just want to make that point. You can't just
We-
hold
we're
it.
Well,
probably,
we're
we're
spending
one of
a-
the very few
yeah.
communities
Right.
that carries any balance.
Right,
Everybody
exactly.
spends
So
it every year.
I just want to make
In
that
fact,
We're
when
point.
he had it-
spending down to $166,000 this year in what we're bringing in. That's the closest we've ever been to what we've spent. I'm just saying, we're going down this slippery slope, and all of a sudden, it's going to be, wow, we need to have a tax increase because we don't have enough tourist money. Well, we've got to start getting used to not spending all that money.
Well, you can't hold on to it, though.
But
It's
you-
like you can't hold
but
on
you
to it.
can
Right.
hold on to
But
portions,
but
and
you
that's
can't-
exactly
right.
what we've done.
But we've,
Well, Carol, if you spend what you bring in every year, you're never going to have that problem. But you can't spend
and
more.
I am so good at that.
Yeah, but you can't, it's not viable to keep spending more
Right,
than
but
you're bringing in.
I just want to, you can't just
No.
Yeah, we all know
constantly-
that. We all
Right,
know that.
Okay,
But we've saved for so many years
Right.
for these matters, so.
Just so I'm clear, I mean, part of the reason we're taking this extraordinary hit for Hill, Sandy, is because that's the way you wanted to do it. You wanted to do it all
But
up front.
what I thought would happen is that we would look at the budget and say, since we've got 1.6 we got to spend on Hill, what do we have
We're
to
gonna cut
do?
1.6
What we
out
are
of the other
not going to
services?
do, what are we not going to do this year? Like $193 worth of $193,000 of landscaping.
We're going to
Maybe we
raise some
can't do
revenue.
that this year.
We're going to raise more revenue.
Okay, all right, we're getting out of control
Yeah.
here.
I do-
Let's
Let me
move
just
on.
quickly clarify that the governor's appointment for me to serve on the Tourism Expenditure Review Committee does not give the city any pass. Our expenditures are scrutinized every year by that committee, whether I serve on it or not. So I do not get assigned, we split it all up by the state, and someone else is doing the review on the city's expenditures. I get questions occasionally about it, but it's not up to me. So we're being scrutinized now and have been every year, whether I'm on the committee or not.
All right, that moves us up to item 8 on our list, second reading, ordinance 2017-04, an ordinance to raise revenue and adopt budget, City of Isle Palms, South Carolina, from July 1st, 17 to ending June 30th, 2018. I'll make that as a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion and second. Further discussion on the budget. Ted?
Yes, I'm going to oppose the budget for the following reasons. But first, I want to thank staff for all their dedicated work. What I hope we would have done, and what I hope my colleagues will consider in the future, is to engage in greater innovation. There's opportunities, both for savings as well as revenue raising, but we don't want to innovate. We also don't want to reform our systems. We seem to be satisfied with the status quo. And finally, there are many opportunities for non-property tax revenue that we are not pursuing. So what you're setting up in a few years is to increase property taxes, which many suggest they don't want to do. I'm happy to discuss this issue at any time with any citizen, with any staff person, with anyone on council. But I ask in the future, as we go forward, think about innovation. Think about where Charleston got to where they are, where the city of Greenville got to where they are, and accept and explore things that are new and different and have the opportunity to make for better quality of life for our citizens, and consider reform as we have occasionally discussed. And I thank you.
Okay. No other comments? All in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. Budget passes.
I voted for.
Oh, okay.
All right, the budget passes 5-4. You've made the note, Maureen, okay? No bills in possession, oh, we have a resolution for workplace safety. I'll make a motion to approve it and suspend the reading. Motion and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Even though we're sitting through a tornado.
I know, how ironic is this?
I think it's been lifted to, it's just a thunderstorm warning now.
Part of that resolution that we just passed states that each department head will be responsible for the safety and health of the employees in their department, as well as the required maintenance of facilities and equipment in their area of responsibility.
Isn't that interesting?
Good.
It's not building maintenance we're talking about.
And Mr. Mayor, I interpreted that to mean as pertains to employees' safety.
Safety.
Talking about safety here.
It's all a
Roof
function of safety,
replacement.
right. All right, all in favor of the resolution, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right, motion carries. No miscellaneous, Tuesday, June 20th, we'll be meeting, I believe that's following a Ways and Means Committee meeting. That'll take place at 5 o'clock. No other comments? See you at the sand sculpting or before? Motion to adjourn?
I know it is.
So moved.
Second.
Any opposed? All right, motion carries.